I was halfway back to my truck when her message came through. The screen lit up in the dark like a warning light. All access credentials will be transferred to HOA control by morning. I stopped walking. Gravel crunched under my boots, loud in the quiet. That line was not a request. It was a move. A bad one. I turned and looked back at the marina. The control shed hummed low, steady, like it always did when the system was balanced. Every lock, every pump, every gate tied into that one network. And my name still sat at the top of the admin list. I could feel the weight of that in my pocket. Not power. Responsibility. They had no idea what they were about to touch. My phone buzzed again. A forwarded email this time. Victoria had copied every homeowner on it. Due to contractor non-compliance, we are assuming operational control of all shared lake access systems effective immediately. Non-compliance. The word sat wrong. Like a tool used the wrong way. I read the timestamp. Sent 2 minutes after I left the clubhouse. Fast. Too fast. That meant she already had someone lined up. I glanced at the shoreline. Lights flickered inside the houses. Movement behind glass. People pacing. Word traveled fast in places like this. Money made everything louder. Caleb stepped out of the passenger side of the truck and leaned against the door. "You see that?" he asked. I handed him the phone. He read it once, then again slower. His jaw tightened. "They cannot just take this over," he said. I did not answer right away. I listened. The lake was calm, but the system was not. A faint click came from the dock relay box. Then another. Small signals. Someone was already trying to access it. Remote login attempt. Unauthorized. The controller rejected it clean. For now. I walked down to the edge of the dock. The board still smelled like fresh sealant and storm water. My boots left dark prints behind me. The keypad blinked once. Then again. Another attempt. Whoever she hired did not understand what they were dealing with. This was not a smart lock you bought online. This was a layered system. Physical gates. Digital keys. Redundant controls tied to water pressure and dock stability. You did not just take control of something like that overnight. Unless you broke it. And if they broke it, the whole cove would feel it. I reached the control shed and rested my hand on the steel door. It vibrated faintly under my palm. Steady. Alive. I remembered installing the override circuit 3 years back. A small clause in the service agreement required it. Installer retains emergency control until full compensation is received. Most people skim past that line. Victoria definitely did. Another click. This one louder. The system logged a failed attempt. Third in under a minute. Whoever was on the other side was getting impatient. Caleb let out a low breath behind me. "They are pushing it," he said. I nodded once. This was no longer about money. This was about control. About who understood the system and who thought they did. I pulled my phone back out and opened the control interface. The screen reflected in the dark water below. Clean. Simple. One dashboard holding every function they needed to live on this lake. And every function they were about to lose. I hovered over the access panel, not touching anything yet. Just watching the alerts stack up. One after another. Then I noticed something that made me pause. A new device had just connected to the network. Unknown. Unverified. And it was not being rejected. The unknown device stayed on the network longer than it should have. It did not drop. It did not get kicked. It just sat there, quiet, like it belonged. That was wrong. I narrowed my eyes at the screen. The connection signal was clean. Too clean for someone guessing their way in. Caleb shifted beside me, boots scraping against the dock. "You see that thing holding?" he asked. I nodded once. My thumb hovered over the isolate command, but I did not press it yet. I wanted to see what it would do. The lake air felt colder all of a sudden. A faint ripple tapped against the dock, steady and slow. Then the system flickered. Not fully. Just enough to notice. One of the auxiliary panels blinked offline for half a second. Then it came back. That was the first escalation. Whoever was behind the connection was not just poking around. They were mapping it. Learning. The layout. My jaw tightened. That kind of probing could destabilize the valve timing if they pushed too far. And if the valve timing slipped, pressure across the cove would drop unevenly. Not dangerous yet. But messy. Expensive. I tapped into the deeper log feed. Lines of data scrolled up the screen. Commands. Queries. Someone was trying to mirror the control structure. Not copy it. Mirror it. That meant they wanted control without tripping the failsafes. I let out a slow breath. That was not amateur work. They hired someone, Caleb said quietly. Yeah, I answered. And he thinks this is just software. Another flicker. This time the dock lights along the east side dimmed for a second. A woman's voice carried across the water. Sharp. Panicked. Why did the lights just drop? The ripple spread fast. Doors opened. More voices. The whole shoreline started to wake up. That was the second escalation. Small, but enough to shake confidence. I watched the unknown device send another command. It hit a protected layer this time. The system rejected it. Clean. Immediate. But the delay between attempts was shrinking. Faster now. Aggressive. I could almost feel the pressure building behind each input. I stepped inside the control shed and closed the steel door behind me. The hum deepened, louder in the enclosed space. Screens glowed soft blue across the panel. Everything still under control. For now. I ran a quick trace on the device. The signal bounced once. Then again. Routed through a mobile relay. Local. Very local. I looked through the small window toward the houses. One of the garages had its door open. Light spilling out onto the driveway. A man stood inside with a laptop set up on the hood of a car. Head down. Focused. That was him. He did not look up. He did not need to. He thought he was invisible behind the network. I almost smiled. He was not breaking in. He was knocking on every door, hoping one stayed open long enough. But he had already touched the wrong layer. The part that tied digital access to physical systems. He did not know where the boundaries were. And that meant he was about to cross one. My phone buzzed again. Victoria. Calling this time. I let it ring once. Twice. Then I answered. Her voice came fast. Controlled, but tight. What did you do? She asked. I looked at the screen. At the unknown device. At the commands stacking faster now. Nothing yet, I said. And that was the truth. For now. Then the system gave me a new alert that made everything shift. The alert cut through the hum like a crack in glass. Valve sync error, Sector 3. I froze for half a second, eyes locked on the panel. That was not supposed to happen unless someone touched the pressure timing. Outside, I heard it before I saw it. A sharp drop in water flow. Faucet somewhere along the east side sputtered, then coughed air. A man yelled from one of the decks, confused, angry. The system tried to compensate, pushing pressure from the main line to stabilize the drop. That kept things running, but it shifted load across the entire cove. That was the third escalation. And it was no longer small. Caleb stepped closer behind me. "They are messing with the valves now," he said. I nodded once. My eyes stayed on the feed. The unknown device had changed behavior. No more slow probing. Now it was pushing commands directly into the timing layer. Fast. Sloppy. Dangerous. Whoever that guy was, he thought he had found a way in. He had not. He had just found the edge. I tapped into manual override view. Every valve line showed a slight delay. Not enough to trigger shutdown. But enough to strain the system if it kept going. The hum in the shed deepened. Motors adjusting. Pumps compensating. I could smell warm circuitry in the air. That faint metallic heat that always came before a system got stressed. My phone was still at my ear. Victoria had not hung up. Her voice came back, sharper now. "What is happening to the water?" I did not answer right away. I listened again. The lake stayed calm. But the system was not. "You brought someone in," I said finally. Silence for a beat. "Then, we brought in a specialist." I almost laughed. "He is not a specialist," I said. "He is guessing." Another flicker hit the panel. Sector 3 dropped pressure again. This time longer. A second house lost flow completely for 3 seconds. Long enough to panic someone. Inside. I heard glass doors slide open across the water. More voices. Louder now. Not controlled. Not polite. Real panic. The unknown device pushed another command. It bypassed one layer, then hit the physical constraint lock. Rejected. But the delay stretched. Too close. Caleb swore under his breath. "He is going to break something," he said. I shook my head slowly. "No," I said. "He already is." I ran the trace again. The signal tightened. No more bouncing. Direct line now. He had moved closer to the source. That meant one thing. He had physical proximity to the system hardware. I looked back through the window. The man in the garage was gone. The laptop was still there. Screen glowing. But the chair was empty. That made my stomach drop just a little. Not fear. Calculation. He was moving. My eyes shifted toward the marina path. Footsteps echoed faintly over the dock boards. Slow. Careful. Coming closer. Caleb heard it too. He straightened. "You expecting him?" he asked. I did not answer. I watched the panel instead. The unknown device signal strength spiked. Stronger than before. Right on top of us now. Inside range. The system flashed another warning. Unauthorized proximity detected. That was new. That alert only triggered when someone got within direct access distance of the control hardware. The kind of distance where guessing stops and real damage can start. I moved my hand closer to the master control. Not pressing anything yet. Just ready. Outside the shed, the footsteps stopped. Right at the door. Then the handle shifted slightly. Not opening. Just testing. And that was when I knew this was about to turn into something much bigger than a payment dispute. The handle stopped moving, then went still like whoever was outside just realized the door would not give. I did not speak. I did not move. The hum inside the shed filled the silence, low and steady, like a warning. Then a soft knock came. Not loud. Not confident. Testing. Caleb glanced at me, waiting. I shook my head once. We let it sit. The system pinged again. Valve sync unstable, Sector 3. Outside, the lake houses were louder now. Voices overlapping. Someone shouted about losing water. Completely. Another voice cut in, angry, demanding answers. That pressure was spreading faster than the system could smooth it. The unknown device pushed another command. This one hit deeper. It forced a timing shift across 2 valves instead of 1. The panel flickered. Numbers jumped. The pump load spiked for a second. I stepped forward and placed my hand on the manual override. Still not pressing. Just feeling the system through the vibration. Whoever was outside did not understand what they were touching. That was the real problem. Not the access. Not the attempt. The ignorance. The knock came again. Harder this time. Open the door, a man's voice said. Calm, but tight. That was him. The specialist. I could hear his breathing through the steel. Slightly off rhythm. Focused, but not steady. He was close to the hardware now, and that made him bold. You are destabilizing a live system, I said through the door. I kept my voice level. No emotion. Just fact. There was a pause. Then, you are obstructing authorized control, he replied. His tone shifted on the last word. Less certain. That told me everything I needed. He was working off instructions. Not understanding. Another alert flashed. Pressure imbalance detected, redistribution active. The system was compensating harder now. Drawing from the main line to keep the outer houses running. That bought time. But it also increased strain. The hum deepened again. Caleb exhaled slowly. He is going to push it until something drops, he said. I nodded. He already crossed that line. Outside, footsteps moved along the side of the shed. He was circling. Looking for another entry point. There was not one. Not without tools he clearly did not have. But he did not need to break in to cause damage. His connection was already inside. I tapped into the access log again. The command rate had doubled. No hesitation now. He thought he had control. That confidence was about to cost them. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out without looking away from the panel. Victoria again. I answered this time. Her voice came through sharper than before. Our water is dropping in multiple houses, she said. No greeting. No control. Just pressure. Then you should tell your guy to stop, I said. A beat of silence. Then, he says he is fixing it. I almost smiled. He is not fixing anything, I said. He is forcing the system to guess. Another flicker hit the panel. This one longer. Sector 3 went dark for nearly 2 full seconds. Outside, someone yelled louder than before. Panic, not irritation. That was the shift. Once panic started, it spread faster than any system failure. The unknown device pushed again. Harder. It tried to override a protected sequence. The system rejected it, but the delay stretched even more. Too close. Too unstable. Caleb stepped in closer. We cannot let him keep doing this, he said. I looked at the panel. At the alert stacking faster. At the strain building across every line I had just repaired. Then I made the decision. Not fast. Not emotional. Just clear. I slid my thumb across the master control interface and opened the lockdown protocol. The screen shifted. New options. Final ones. The kind you only use when control is no longer shared. Outside, the man stopped moving. Like he felt it. Like the system itself had just changed tone. I hovered for half a second. Then the first lock engaged somewhere out on the dock. A sharp metallic click echoed across the water. And everything started to change. The second lock engaged before the echo of the first one faded. Then another. Then another. A chain reaction rolled across the marina, metal clicking in sequence like a row of falling switches. Outside, the man at the door stopped breathing for a moment. I could hear it through the steel. The system responded instantly. Dock access points sealed. Gate motors shifted to restricted mode. Valve timing recalibrated under controlled load. The chaos slowed, not gone, but contained. That was the first shift. Not panic anymore. Control. Caleb let out a low whistle behind me. You just cut them off, he said. I did not look back. My eyes stayed on the panel. The unknown device was still pushing commands, but now they were bouncing off a locked layer. Every attempt rejected faster than before. Clean. Precise. The system had changed rules. He cannot get through that. Now, Caleb added. No, I said. Now he can only watch. Outside, the man knocked again. Harder this time. What did you just do? He demanded. His voice was no longer calm. It carried a sharp edge now. Urgency. I did not answer him. Instead, I watched the pressure level stabilize on the screen. Sector 3 climbed back into range. Slow, but steady. The hum in the shed evened out. Less strain. Still working. But now it was working on my terms. My phone buzzed again. Victoria. I answered without speaking. Why are doors locking? She asked. Her voice was tighter than before. Controlled, but barely. Because your system is under emergency restriction, I said. Silence. Then, you cannot do that. I glanced at the contract file still open on the lower corner of my screen. The clause sat there, plain and simple. Not hidden. Not complicated. Just ignored. I already did, I said. Outside, the shoreline had shifted again. People were no longer just shouting. They were moving. Walking fast along the dock. Phones in hand. Lights flicking on inside houses. The whole cove felt different. Not confusion anymore. Pressure. Real pressure. The unknown device sent another command. This time slower. Testing the new limits. It hit the locked layer and stopped. No delay. No flicker. Just blocked. That was the second shift. Whoever that man was, he had just realized he was not in control anymore. I could feel it through the pattern of his inputs. Hesitation where there had been speed. Gaps where there had been force. Caleb leaned closer. He is backing off, he said. I nodded slightly. He is thinking now. Outside, footsteps moved again. Not circling. Stepping away from the door. That told me everything. He was done trying to break in. For now. The system gave a soft chime. Not an alert. A confirmation. Stability threshold restored. I let out a slow breath. The lake air through the small vent smelled cleaner now. Less heat. Less strain. But this was not over. Not even close. My phone buzzed again. Not Victoria this time. A new number. I let it ring once. Twice. Then answered. A different voice came through. Older. Slower. Not panicked. Mr. Caldwell, the man said. This is Richard Hale. I glanced at the shoreline. Victoria had stopped moving. Her phone pressed to her ear, face tight. That connection was not random. We need to talk, he continued. His tone was calm. Too calm for everything happening out there. That was the third shift. The one that mattered. This was no longer just about systems or access. This had moved up a level. I looked at the control panel one more time. Every lock in place. Every valve stable. Every line under control. Then I stepped toward the door. The handle was still. The man outside had backed away. But the conversation waiting on that call was just beginning. The door opened with a dull metallic click when I finally pulled the handle, and the man outside stepped back half a pace like he had just lost his footing. He was younger than I expected. Clean shirt. Laptop bag still slung over one shoulder. Eyes sharp, but no longer confident. He glanced past me into the control shed, then back at his phone. Signal gone. That was the first thing he noticed. "You cut my access," he said. Not accusing. Just stating it. I leaned against the frame, keeping the door half open. The hum from inside spilled out into the cooler lake air. "You never had access," I replied. He held my gaze for a second, then looked away. That hesitation told me everything. He had walked in thinking this was a standard override job. A system he could map, replicate, control. Now he was standing in front of the part he could not reach. Behind him, the shoreline was alive. People clustered in small groups along the dock. Phones pressed to ears. Voices rising and falling. The panic had shifted into something heavier. Frustration. Pressure. Expectation. Caleb stepped up beside me, arms crossed, watching the scene. The man outside adjusted the strap on his bag, buying himself time. "They told me this was a locked contractor dispute," he said. "They did not say the system had integrated physical controls." I almost smiled. "That is because they do not know what that means," I said. He nodded slowly. Not arguing. Processing. That was the second shift. He was no longer trying to push. He was trying to understand. My phone was still at my ear. Richard Hale had not hung up. He had been listening. Quiet. Measuring. "Mr. Caldwell," he said again, voice steady, older, practiced. "We are prepared to resolve this." I did not answer right away. I watched the man in front of me instead. He had already stepped back another inch from the door. Subtle. But clear. Distance from the system. From the mistake. "Resolve what?" I asked finally. The lake went quieter for a second, like the sound had pulled back just enough to let that question sit. Richard did not rush his answer. "The invoice," he said. Simple. Direct. No extra words. That was new. I glanced down at the panel inside the shed. Every line stable. Every lock engaged. No strain. The system was holding exactly where I said it. "You had a chance to resolve it yesterday," I said. Across the water, Victoria turned sharply, pacing along the edge of the dock. Her voice cut through the air again, louder than before. She was not part of this conversation anymore. Not really. Richard exhaled slowly on the other end of the line. "Yesterday was handled poorly," he said. That was as close to an admission as he was going to give. The man in front of me shifted again, glancing back toward the houses. He knew what was coming. Not the details. But the direction. "Payment is not the only issue now," I said. I kept my tone level. Not pushing. Not pulling. Just setting the line. A faint breeze moved across the lake, carrying the smell of water and wood and something sharper underneath. Tension. Real tension. The kind that did not fade quickly. "Then tell me what is," Richard replied. His voice stayed calm, but there was a weight behind it now. Not authority. Not pressure. just understanding that the ground had shifted. I looked at the man outside one more time. Then at the shoreline. Then back at the control panel glowing inside the shed. This was no longer just about a bill. This was about who controlled what came next. I let the silence stretch just long enough to make that clear. Then I spoke. I let the silence hang just long enough to make him lean in. Then I spoke. You do not just pay the invoice, I said. You fix what you broke tonight. The man outside shifted. Again, eyes flicking toward the dock where a group of homeowners were now gathered around one of the locked gates. Someone pulled on it. It did not move. The metallic latch held firm. That sound traveled farther than they expected. Richard did not answer right away. I could hear him breathing on the line. Slow. Controlled. Calculating. Be specific, he said finally. That was better. Not pushing back. Asking terms. I glanced at the panel inside the shed. The logs were still recording every failed attempt from the unknown device. Every forced command. Every spike in pressure. Time-stamped. Clean. Your guy tried to override a live system, I said. He pushed commands into protected layers and destabilized valve timing across Sector 3. The man outside did not argue. He lowered his eyes slightly. That told Richard everything without me needing to say more. We will cover any additional costs, Richard replied. His voice stayed even, but the edge was gone now. Replaced with something more careful. That was the third shift. They were no longer denying. They were negotiating damage. I shook my head once, even though he could not see it. This is not just cost, I said. This is liability. Across the water, a woman's voice rose again, sharper than before. Why is nothing working? Another voice answered, louder. Because they shut it down. That word carried. Shut. Not broken. Not failed. Controlled. That difference mattered. The man outside exhaled slowly. He understood now. Not all of it. But enough. You built fail-safes tied to physical access, he said quietly. I nodded once. And ownership, I added. That part sat heavier. Richard spoke again, slower this time. What are your terms? The question came clean. No extra language. No authority behind it. Just the reality of the situation. I let my eyes move across the shoreline. Victoria was still pacing, phone pressed to her ear, but she was no longer the one directing anything. The group around her had shifted away, forming smaller clusters. Watching. Waiting. Pressure was moving off her and onto something larger. That was how these places worked. Control followed stability. Full payment, I said. Wire. Transfer. Not a check. Not a promise. I paused for half a second. Then continued. Additional service agreement reinstated. In writing. No third-party access without authorization. The man outside nodded slowly with each point. He was already accepting it. He just needed to hear Richard do the same. The lake air moved through the open door, cool against the warmth of the control shed. The hum inside stayed steady. No strain. No fluctuation. Everything waiting on one answer. Richard did not rush it. When he spoke again, his tone had changed completely. Not defensive. Not dismissive. Just direct. You will have your payment within the hour, he said. I watched the man outside. His shoulders dropped slightly. Not relief. Adjustment. He was recalibrating his place in this situation. That mattered more than anything he could say. And the agreement? I asked. Drafted tonight, Richard replied. No hesitation. Clean. That was what control sounded like when it shifted hands. I looked back at the panel. Then at the lock still engaged across the dock. Then out at the houses waiting behind them. Then we moved to restore, I said. And I could hear the change ripple across the line before anyone else even knew it. I ended the call and the line went dead without any closing words. That told me everything. No more negotiation. Just execution. I stepped back into the control shed and let the door swing shut behind me. The hum wrapped around me again, steady and controlled. The panel glowed soft blue, waiting. I did not rush. I watched the logs for a full 10 seconds. No new commands. No unauthorized signals. The unknown device had gone quiet. Outside, the man took another step back from the door. Not leaving yet. Just watching. Learning the boundary he had crossed. Caleb leaned against the wall, arms still folded. "You trusting that?" he asked. I shook my head once. "I am trusting the wire transfer," I said. My phone buzzed almost on cue. A notification. Incoming funds pending. I opened it. Routing confirmed. Amount exact. No rounding. No delay flag. That was fast. Faster than most people could even set up. Richard had not been guessing. He had been ready. That was the fourth shift. This had been bigger than Victoria from the start. I watched the pending status for another few seconds. Then it cleared. Funds received. Clean. No hold. No question. Just done. I let out a slow breath. Not relief. Just acknowledgement. The system had done its job. Now it was my turn to do mine. I moved my hand to the control panel and opened the restoration sequence. Not all at once. Not a full release. Controlled. Layer by layer. The first lock disengaged with a sharp click that echoed across the dock. Then another. Then a third. Each one spaced out just enough to let the system adjust. Outside, heads turned. People stopped moving. Watching. Waiting. The pressure shifted again, but this time it softened. The second phase came next. Valve timing eased back into normal range. Water flow stabilized across every house. I could hear it even from inside the shed. The faint rush returning through pipes. Smooth. Even. The hum of the system lightened. Less strain. Back where it should be. The man outside let out a breath he had been holding. He glanced down at his phone. Still nothing on his end. No access. No control. Just observation. That was how it was supposed to be. I stepped out of the shed again. The lake air hit cooler now. Cleaner. The tension had not vanished, but it had shifted into something quieter. People were stepping back from the gates. Testing handles again. This time they opened. Slowly. Carefully. Like they did not trust it yet. Victoria stood still now. No pacing. No shouting. Just watching the system come back under control. Not hers. Never really hers. Caleb walked past me toward the truck, boots steady on the boards. "That is one way to collect," he said under his breath. I did not answer. My eyes stayed on the water. The surface was calm again, reflecting the lights from the houses in long, steady lines. Like nothing had happened. But everything had. I pulled my phone out one last time and opened the contract file. The new agreement was already there. Sent. Signed. Time-stamped. Fast. Efficient. Final. I closed it and slid the phone back into my pocket. The system behind me hummed soft and steady. The kind of sound you only noticed when it changed. Tonight, it had changed everything. And as I stood there, watching the last lock release across the dock, I knew this place would never run the same way again.